Walk into almost any hardware store and look at the power tool aisle. Milwaukee, DeWalt, Ryobi, Craftsman, different brands, different colors, different price points. It looks like a competitive market, but the structure behind those brands is far simpler than it appears. The money ends up in the exact same pockets. You think you're choosing, you're not. We live in what appears to be a golden age of choice. Walk into any store and you're confronted with endless options. 47 types of toothpaste, 120 brands of cereal, 15 different drill manufacturers. The market has never been more diverse, or so it seems. Behind the facade of 1,000 logos lies an invisible architecture of power, a system designed by the architects, the people who built a world where competition is theater and the house always wins, where your choice is an illusion carefully maintained to keep you spending. Today, we expose that architecture, we pull back the curtain, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Welcome to Architects of Power. The conglomerate web. Let's go back to that hardware store. You're standing there looking at tools. DeWalt, Milwaukee, Ryobi, Rigid, Hart. Different brands, different price points, different identities, different marketing stories. Professional tier, prosumer tier, budget tier. The market is perfectly segmented. You get what you pay for. Right? Wrong. Over 90% of the brands you see are owned by just two companies, Stanley Black & Decker and TTI Tektronic Industries. Stanley Black & Decker owns DeWalt, Black & Decker, Craftsman, Porter Cable, and about 30 other brands you recognize. TTI owns Milwaukee, Ryobi, Rigid, Hart, and manufactures dozens of store brands. When a giant like TTI buys a legacy brand, they're not buying a factory. They're buying your loyalty. They're buying the psychological association you have with that brand, the memory of your grandfather's tools, the reputation built over 50 years. They keep the logo, they keep the color, they keep the name, but they change the DNA. Here's how it works. TTI manufactures tools on the same production line. They use nearly identical motors, nearly identical gearboxes, nearly identical internal components. Then they slap different colored plastic housings on them and sell them under different brand names at wildly different price points. You pay $250 for Milwaukee because it's red and says professional. You pay $89 for Ryobi because it's green and says DIY. The motor? Same line, same workers. The difference? The housing? The branding? You're paying a 40% premium for a name. This is a psychological operation to capture every dollar, and the quality? Declining. Not because the technology doesn't exist, but because the incentive structure changed. When a brand was independent, they survived on reputation. If DeWalt made garbage, people stopped buying, so they made quality tools. But when a conglomerate owns 30 brands, they don't care if one brand dies. They just shift marketing to another brand. They burn through legacy after legacy, and you keep buying because you think you're switching brands. But the wallet goes to the same place. The global puppeteers. But even conglomerates have bosses. Enter the big three, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. They don't make products. They don't have commercials. Most people have never heard their names. And yet they control more wealth than the GDP of almost every nation on Earth. BlackRock manages over $10 trillion. Vanguard over $8 trillion. State Street over $4 trillion. They are the largest shareholders in almost every major corporation. Check the shareholders of Coca-Cola, top 3. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. Now check Pepsi. Top 3. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. Check Exxon. Check BP. Same names. Check McDonald's. Check Burger King. Same names. This is called common ownership. When the same investors own every player in an industry, competition stops. The companies still advertise against each other. They still release new products. But at the boardroom level, the incentive structure changed. Why? Because if you own both Coke and Pepsi, you don't want them competing on price. You want stable profit margins on both sides. If Coke cuts prices to gain market share, Pepsi loses money. And you own Pepsi, so you lose. The optimal strategy is no longer to win. The optimal strategy is safe extraction. The same logic applies to tools. What we are seeing now is what happens when Stanley Black & Decker and TTI realize they don't have to compete. You want them splitting the market while costs are cut. So what do these investors do? They pressure the companies. Behind closed doors in shareholder meetings. They tell CEOs one thing: cut costs by 2% every year, increase margins. And where does that 2% come from? Replacing metal gears with plastic, replacing motors with cheaper motors designed to fail, planned obsolescence, products that break 1 year after the warranty. The companies do it because the largest shareholders demand it, and the largest shareholders own the competition. So you have nowhere to run. The market has been neutralized at the boardroom table. Enshittification. There's a term for this. Enshittification. Cory Doctorow. It applies to everything now: tools, cars, appliances. Enshittification is the process by which products become worse while prices stay the same or increase. It's not accidental. It's institutional capital optimizing for extraction. When choice is removed, quality dies. When the same investors own every option, innovation stops. When competition is theater, the consumer loses. You're not buying a tool, you're buying the memory of what that tool used to be, the logo your grandfather trusted. But the logo is a shell, and they've engineered it to fail just past the warranty, 13 months, right after you can't return it. This is a system calibrated for extraction. They've modeled how long a tool needs to last for you to not leave a bad review. And they've built it to exactly that spec. Not 1 day longer. If you see the system, like this video, if they make a drill that lasts 20 years, you don't buy another for 20 years. Lost revenue. So they make a drill that lasts 3 years, and in 3 years, you buy another. The cycle continues. Enshittification of our world. The extraction of value, the replacement of quality with the appearance of quality. So the next time you walk down the tool aisle and see all those different brands, all those different colors, all those different prices, ask yourself who really owns what. Because the illusion of choice is the most profitable product they ever made. This is Architects of Power. The system survives when people don't question it. Subscribe. You start looking for exceptions. Independent makers who haven't been absorbed. Third, you tell others. You break the illusion. Because the only way this system survives is if people don't know it exists. Knowledge is the first tool to tear this down. The architects built a system where awareness is the enemy. What tool did your grandfather trust that died in months? Tell me below. Where people blame themselves instead of recognizing expensive and cheap come from the same place. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. What brand did you see turn into a shadow of itself? What tool did your grandfather use that lasted decades that you bought last year and died in months? Tell me below. I am Architects of Power. Thanks for watching.